it seems like if parents are stuck between relying on medication or relying on natural consequences to help their kids' cognitive functions, attention, and focus move better. In this video, we're going to dive into one of my favorite resources for sleep, which is Sleep Smarter. I just even love the title, right? We all want to be more efficient. We all want to do things better. So Sleep Smarter is a great resource that I often go to, and it is by Shawn Stevenson. He is a podcaster and talks about all sorts of healthy things, and he's actually a really great resource. Okay, so this book is full of information, but what I love about it is that it takes the information and it takes current resources and it marries the two together on how it will actually make a difference in your life. And my spin is going to be on how it's going to make a difference in specifically the attention of your child's everyday functioning. I'm going to get into my first takeaway. I love how this resource really wraps around why sleep is so important. I'm pretty confident we can all say that sleep is important. Sleep is specifically important for development, right? When babies are little, we're only worried about, are they sleeping, pooping, and eating, okay? As they get older, we know sleep is still important, but sometimes we kind of slide on the importance of sleep. So I want to bring us back to the importance of sleep, because that's really going to play an impact on your frame of reference, your perspective. I'm not going to lie, if you're watching this video because you have a child that is actually struggling with sleep, sleep is hard to get back on track. But with what I'm going to share here today and the resources provided in the book, I'm hoping that you walk away with hope and not giving up, because sleep is very important. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this research study. It went over 24 hours of sleep deprivation. And what the research found, no surprise, the person didn't function their best. But what the research actually found was this sleep deprivation for 24 hours prevented glucose from getting into the brain, specifically the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. If you have seen any of my other videos about executive functioning, or you may have heard me talk about how important the frontal lobe is when it comes to executive functioning. So this research proves what we already know. 24 hours of sleep deprivation depletes your brain of glucose, specifically in the frontal lobe that is responsible for all the thinking. It is responsible for self-control. It is responsible for making good decisions or bad decisions. This research even went on to say this 24-hour sleep deprivation was equivalent to binge drinking or the use of marijuana. That the study participants who had the 24-hour sleep deprivation were 20% more likely to make mistakes, and 14% of them took longer to do routine everyday tasks. Hold on here. What exactly happens to our kids when they go to school? They take a really long time to get things done, right? Our kids that are struggling with attention, that's why they have extended time on tests, extended time on assignments, and they're always making mistakes, and they're bringing home the wrong thing. They're answering the wrong question. They're skipping a question. So if we only took this little piece of research saying that sleep deprivation will cause more mistakes and require longer time for us to complete regular everyday tasks, and we took that and combined it with our kids that are struggling at school or at home with attention issues, if we could just work on the sleep, we could get their speed to be a little bit faster, and we could get the amount of mistakes. Actually, let me rephrase that. We could get them to do things easier and better. That's amazing. So we can all agree sleep is a priority, and hopefully you guys will put sleep back at the top of your list, even though it's hard, but it's so important. Second takeaway, which I'm not even gonna count this as number 2, screen time, right? It's pretty obvious. There's so much information out there. Screen time for adults and kids is horrible. What I did learn is that it's not the actual scrolling or reading more information that, maybe might keep your mind racing, keep your thoughts going, which obviously that will impact your sleep. It's the actual blue light from the screen. So sometimes I have this mini iPad that's like ancient, and really all I can do is use my Kindle on it. Reading from that mini iPad at night will give me the blue light, which is what actually impacts and messes with your sleep rhythm. So I'm gonna go dig out my Kindle that doesn't have any blue light from reading this. So maybe you guys should do the same. Okay, another takeaway was early to rise, getting up early. If you look back in the caveman days, we didn't have no electricity, right? So we knew it was time to get up and hunt because the sun came up. It was time to get ready for the day because the sun was out. It was time to tone it down because the sun started going down. And we knew we needed to rest because the next day we needed to hunt and gather. Clearly that's not our problem anymore, but that early rising, still, the minute our eyes open up and we get that natural sunlight, not only does it tell our brain to release chemicals, okay, time to start your day, so it releases wake up chemicals. I've also learned just recently from another resource that not only does it get your day started, but it gets the whole rhythm started. It actually tells your brain, hey, 14 to 16 hours from now, you're going to need to bring melatonin into the picture. So that early to rise, getting out in the sun, combination with moving your body, is another way to get that sleep rhythm back under control. Not only waking up early, but waking up early, getting into the sunlight through a window, even better if you get to actually go outside and be in the sun, helps you set up your sleep cycle for success. Okay, so my last takeaway from this is the importance of exercise. Exercise was one of the 3 basics. Remember, I said sleep, moving your body, and what you eat. This is specifically exercising regards to sleep. They did a research study showing participants exercising at 7 a.m., midday, and then at the end of the day. So when you exercise, you set off these really feel-good hormones that could interfere with your sleep if you exercise too late in the day. The best optimum time for having a good cycle was the 7 a.m. time of the day, right? So I could tell you, hey, the research showed have your kid exercise at 7 a.m. But at 7 a.m., most of us have to get to school. So it's not the ideal time to get them to exercise. And obviously for a child, exercising is going to be playground, climbing, pulling, pushing. If you can get them in some kind of fitness class, great. But just anything you can do in the backyard will count as that moving your body exercise. The second optimum time was about 4:30, which coincides beautifully with after school time, right? So if your kid happens to be an athlete and they're exercising after school, great. If not, make sure their after school time includes some kind of an exercising activity. We're talking hot and sweaty, pushing and pulling. Walking the dog leisurely doesn't really qualify for exercise for this purpose of this result. Remember, we're trying to hack our sleep cycle. Now, there's 2 research studies. Actually, one of them is a case study that kind of proves and reinforces this idea of exercising for sleeping. He had a gentleman come in who had been for 8 years with chronic insomnia. He put him on an exercise program, took away his cardio, lots of heavy weights, and within a week, the gentleman came back. He's like, I don't know what you've done, but I haven't slept like this in years. So this is a nice case study showing something as easy and simple as moving your body, pushing and pulling heavy things can improve your kids' sleep. The second part of this research that I thought was definitely worth mentioning to you was they did another study where participants started exercising. Didn't get into the details. I'm assuming these people didn't exercise and they started doing some kind of exercise. 55% of them increased their time to get to sleep. I know a lot of times with kids, we struggle with, oh my gosh, it takes them 3 hours to fall asleep and it takes forever. So we now have evidence saying that including exercise in their everyday activities helps that bedtime decrease, and that's amazing. Also, it also improved their amount. I think it was like 18% of them were able to sleep much longer. If your child happens to be an athlete, increasing the amount of sleep they get also has been shown to improve their performance on the field. So also keep that in mind. And here is my bonus, right? How do we put this all together, right? So in the Sleep Smarter book, he has a 14-day reset, right? It's geared towards adults, but I'm gonna pull together the information that we can definitely apply for our kids. A lot of it, not a surprise, right? He tells us the importance of a ritual, right? So for kids, it could include reading from a paper book or a Kindle, no more iPad reading, journaling, some kind of simple gratitude journaling, meditating, a nice warm hot shower, and of course no screen time for 2 hours before going to bed. Now, one thing I'm going to say, if you're watching this and you do have a child that struggles with attention, ADHD, I'm going to challenge you to think of it a little differently. There's tons of information out there that kids and people that have ADHD struggle with sleeping. We can all agree. I've heard that many times. If you're watching this video, you probably have heard it. I want us to put that aside. Sometimes what that does is it causes limiting beliefs for us. So it might look like, oh, my child has ADHD and he will struggle with sleep. So the sleep, nothing we can do about it, right? Might be true, might not be true, but what I want you to do is I want you to switch it, because I want you to start having possibilities as to, well, maybe I can actually tackle this sleep situation. And here's why. When you look at the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they give the recommendations for children that do have ADHD and sleep, they're very similar to the Sleep Smarter 14-day reset. Exercise, change the environment, screen time. The recommendations from the Academy of Pediatrics say 30 minutes before sleep. However, the research in the Sleep Smarter book said 2 hours before sleep. You guys can figure it out. I would tend to go with the Sleep Smarter recommendations of 2 hours, because we know the blue light stays in your system and it messes with your sleep cycle for that long. Interestingly enough, when I was looking about sleep and teens, the information that I found in the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics was that if teens don't get enough sleep, which is more than 8 hours, they end up moody. They end up having behavior problems such as non-compliance, and they have decreased cognitive abilities. Those symptoms sound very similar to those that have ADHD, right? So this is how powerful sleep is. By no means am I suggesting, if you have an ADHD diagnosis, that it is not a real diagnosis. I am suggesting that the power of sleep in teenagers that are not diagnosed, they end up looking very similar as your diagnosed teen. Which brings us back to our original point way back in the beginning of the video. I want you guys to know that the power of sleep will make a huge difference in cognitive functioning, and that there are solutions for your child. I also did say, if you notice, that it wasn't going to be easy, but it is definitely worthwhile, and these researches really prove that sleep impacts how we show up. So we need to do everything we can to help our kids sleep better. Just in case you're wondering, how much sleep does my kid need to get? How little sleep will mess with their cognitive functioning? Well, this is how much sleep your child should get. If they are between the ages of 6 to 12, they should sleep more than 9 hours a day. So if they're sleeping less than 9 hours a day, they can have those symptoms we talked about: the moodiness, the behavior problems, non-compliance, the decreased cognitive behavior. If you have a teen, pretty much 13 to 18, If they're sleeping less than 8 hours, so their ideal sleep is about 9 to 10. If they're sleeping less than 8 hours, they will have these symptoms, let's say, exasperate. So guys, grab the book, Sleep Smarter, take a deep breath, pull deep from the inside, but do not give up on sleeping with your child, because it really will give you a better overall picture of how their attention really can improve, at least the basics, the foundation. So even if you do go the route of medication, which is sometimes a great decision, having better sleep will help the medication work better. Having better sleep will have any intervention work better. So go ahead, subscribe to this channel, because I have a couple more book reviews coming up, and grab your resource of Sleep Smarter.